Always seems to be one day in the fall that's just like a big downer day. It's like flat out depressing. There's a ton of self doubt, feeling wishy washy, sulky, yucky. It's just like an all around, like dark, shitty day. And every year, without fail, I encounter this day at some point in the fall. So today I want to share with you a little bit about what that is, what is that day, how you can best prepare yourself for the season, and a tool to use on that one shitty fall day. And to start, where I'd actually like to begin is to share an activity that you can do right now that will help you down the road, and trust me, it's worth it. So right now we're rounding out this watery full moon with the equinox. And so the veil is really thin right now between the worlds. You're likely able to connect pretty deeply to yourself and your sacred purpose. It's also the corn moon, and we approach holidays and many traditions of the harvest. So I notice that I actually often skip over the valuable opportunity this time of year to reflect mid-year on my harvest, and I rush straight into the inward journey, settling and preparing for the launch of my winter creative project. So that is a great activity for yourself right now, to pause in this special doorway in between seasons and take some time and make a ceremony. Sit and reflect on what you have harvested so far for this year. What have been some of the wins? What are you proud of? What blessings surprised you? You can journal these two. In fact, actually, I recommend writing them down. This is part of the tool that you'll use later, is to actually write all of this down. So let me start over with some of the questions for you to sit with. What have been some of your wins this year? What are you proud of? What blessings have surprised you? What is inspiring you right now? What do you know about your purpose right now? What is your soul's desire? Yeah, and take some time and make a ceremony and journal about some of this, or at least make a note to yourself with reflections on some of these questions and some of the answers. And hang on to it. So when that dark day comes, when you catch yourself in the fall gloom and the plain and simple depression, this is going to come in handy. So the fall is the beginning of our yearly descent into self. Even if you're doing a lot of inner work, the fall still calls you deeper in without fail. I like to think of it as, especially this specific time of year, as the approaching of that inner well. And so as we approach the well, it becomes this sort of ominous thing. You see like the dark pit below, and it feels like it might be nothing, or it might be overwhelming, or it might be too dark, right? And so what happens is we get to the edge of the well, and the well is the journey into ourselves. We get to the edge, and we begin to get confronted by our shadows and triggers and our demons. We can know that the inward journey is the opportunity for expansion and understanding and awakening new gifts. And it's still challenging when we pull up to the top of the well. And this is usually that one fall day. So here at the edges of the well, it's where we meet temptation. Only the temptation shows up as triggers in the external world. And so wherever we might be blocked, we'll see the opposition, and this will show up in our life and kind of feed some of these subconscious fears that we have. For me, every year the trigger shows up differently, but ultimately they're arising for the same reason. So right now, the temptation that I'm experiencing is to make myself busy, to come up with reasons why I need to rush around, really to avoid looking at myself, knowing myself deeper, or seeing my shadows. So the temptation actually is to turn away from myself. Even when I was putting together a couple of bullet points for myself for this transmission, I mean, I largely channel this information spontaneously, and I usually jot down like a couple notes to help guide me as I begin. And so I was just trying to make like a couple notes, like seriously, like 4 little like half sentences. And it took me way longer than it should have. And what I noticed is while I was making those notes, I kept getting busy, kept picking up my phone, checking other apps, looking at other websites, and doing random things that were absolutely not important at all in this moment. And so it took me a really long time to finish the couple of notes for this transmission. I notice I do this a lot, actually, often when I am doing work. So sometimes I'll start getting distracted when I'm actually just tired and it's time to put down the work for the day and rest. And I'm just trying to push and get something done. And so, I kind of meet this place of exhaustion. And so I'm just like spinning out because I'm allowing myself to get distracted because it's actually just time to be done with the work for today. No longer can be productive, and it's actually counterproductive to keep pushing and trying to get the work done, right? Other times, the distractions come in when I'm sitting down to share a deep inner peace or doing something like writing a vulnerable email or post. I'll sit down to do it, and suddenly I find myself in the kitchen grabbing a snack. And then I come back, distracting myself, coming back and sitting back down to it. And then before I know it, I'm checking Facebook. And then I bring myself back, and then I'm checking my text. And I have to keep course correcting and coming back to my task at hand. And it's so easy to slip into this and spend hours going on tangents. The key to avoiding this pitfall is really awareness. When I'm about to do a task that will be powerful, it is likely to make me a little bit squirmy too. And I have to set myself up for success, like giving myself a time limit, or not having my phone next to me, or not following any distractions. Sometimes I even find myself yelling, "Distraction!" As I'm like sitting down to do a thing or typing something, and then all of a sudden I'm on a website and I don't even like looking up something random. Distraction! Close it, close all the windows, turn over the phone, come back to my task at hand. Catching myself in the act. And the more you do it, the quicker it becomes, and the easier it becomes, and the better you are at it. But the other tool that I constantly use in this place is when I notice the correlation here is I end up distracting myself because I'm about to share something from my soul. I'm doing that quick inward journey and bringing something outward to express. And so that gets a little bit scary. And so in the process of sort of diving in to feel for what it is, that's where the distractions come up. And the distractions, for me is the temptation, right? It's the temptation to avoid going in. And like I said, each year they show up differently. So sometimes it's come up with extreme self-doubt. Some years it's shown up with a lot of like self-questioning. Some years it's shown up as like a lot of self-hate and judgment, right? And that one depressing fall day, this is when we're being invited inward for the season. When it's time to enter the well and we are resisting again. And in the same way that we can catch our distractions when we're trying to do a task that's from our soul, know that the resistance is our ego trying to tempt us not to go inward. that what is actually coming is looking at who we are, gaining further understanding of ourselves, and moving through the next layer of illusion and the next layer of trust, of inner trust, of trusting ourselves. And yeah, of course, the inward journey can be scary, but it's always the best place. And so our ego will bring up anything it can to trigger us and make us feel bad or judge ourselves or question ourselves. It's a distraction. And this is when you get to pull out your note and repeat the ceremony. You get to revisit your harvest and what you knew from right now in this moment while the veil was thin and you had direct access to the desires of your soul. Pull out this note. It's okay to be in a dark place from time to time. And one of the purpose of this note is to help you remember who you are when you're on the edge of the well about to drop in. It's like a compass that will lead you back to yourself and give you the permission to go ahead and deep dive. For me, it makes going into the well less scary and turns it into a ceremony and maybe even a celebration. And of course, if you're interested in a deep dive into yourself and navigating spiritual realms and becoming confident in using your healing gifts, contact me about Shaman School. I would love to talk to you and connect with you more about that opportunity. Thanks for joining me today. Happy harvest to you, and bye for now.